We got them, gang. We got them. They have been exposed. This is going to absolutely blow your mind. Elon Musk is calling it the bullseye. We've discovered the motherload. A huge shout out once again to Data Republican. I cited Data Republican's amazing election analysis pretty much every day leading up to November in the last few weeks. She's one of the best election modelers out there. And she's since joined forces with DOGE as this rising new techno-populist age. And she's uncovering some of the most scandalous corruptions imaginable inside DC. And her latest is the exposure of 7 NGOs, right? Non-governmental organizations. Note the term. Non-government organizations that are not supposed to have anything to do with the government. 7 non-governmental organizations that she's calling the uniparty unmasked. She has a great thread on X that you want to avail yourself of. And she also gives a big shout out to intelligence expert Mike Benz, who I'm sure most of you know. He's long been on the forefront of exposing the role that NGOs play in what's really nothing less than a mass money laundering operation involving billions. We're talking tens of billions of our tax dollars. Here's how Data Republican put it. The 7 NGOs in the chart below, in my view, represent the uniparty. Each of these organizations receives substantial financial support from the USAID or the Department of State. Obviously, this is being rectified as we speak with Trump shutting USAID down. Around 2019, the phrase democracy in danger began to dominate public discourse, amplified by the media. This way, and of course, the media was getting, we now know the media was getting kickbacks from USAID funds, right? Now, this was odd. After all, the United States is a democracy, for more precisely, a constitutional republic. But as I traced the influence of these NGOs, a pattern emerged. They are controlled by establishment politicians. They play a major role in shaping political narratives worldwide, and their core mission is always framed as, quote, protecting democracy, close quote. And again, you're going to see these are both parties. This is the uniparty here. Originally, these NGOs were created to support U.S. democratic efforts abroad, many of them emerging during the Cold War to combat the spread of communism. But with the fall of the Soviet Union, their original purpose faded. Instead of dissolving, and this kind of reminds me of the old Reagan maxim, right? The closest thing to eternal life on earth is a government program. But instead of dissolving, they refined their mission. Now they have positioned themselves as the guardians of democracy itself. So the enemy is no longer the Soviet Union. The enemy is anything they deem to be non-democratic or an assault on democracy. This shift explains why Trump's reelection was framed as a threat to democracy. To these NGOs, democracy means themselves. Their survival depends on maintaining that role, and any challenge to their authority is perceived as a direct attack on democracy itself. Now, this is so brilliant because what Data Republican is doing here is she's taking theoretical analysis to a whole new level. And what I mean by that in terms of theoretical analysis is that in political theory, it's long been recognized that the ruling class uses the term democracy in a very different way than we, the people, use it, which of course is ironic, given what the term democracy means, right? It means the rule of the demos, the rule of the people. Scholars make a distinction between two kinds of democracy, what they call pragmatic democracy and redemptive democracy. So, redemptive democracy, that involves true democracy, the democracy of the people. It's considered a restorative democracy, in that there are those of us who actually want to restore a democracy that honors rather than rejects the will of the people. In other words, it's the very definition of democracy, the kratos and the demos, the rule of the people, right? But the Washington establishment, our ruling elites, are actively attempting to redefine democracy as involving solely what they, as the permanent political class, want. And that's what scholars call pragmatic democracy. So pragmatic democracy involves the various ways in which the ruling class, or modern day oligarchs, govern in accordance with their own values, interests, and concerns that are growing, obviously, increasingly alienated from the values, interests, concerns of the people, of the demos. So we see this, for example, with the likes of George Soros, who funds, right, who's has his own NGOs, or the demons in Davos, Klaus Schwab and the WEF. They make the argument quite overtly, by the way, quite explicitly. They make the argument that because our free will choices, the democratic choices of electorates around the world, have the potential of electing world leaders who the WEF and Soros consider to be a threat to the environment, a threat to the green policies that are supposedly saving the earth and making them lots of money, those populations cannot be allowed to vote for the politicians of their choice, precisely because, as they claim, such a choice can literally destroy the planet. So to our elites, when we vote in, say, Donald Trump, or when Romanians vote in Călin Georgescu, that's not democracy. As far as they're concerned, the consent of the governed is not democracy. They think it's ecological suicide, or at least they want us to claim that they think, they want us to believe that they think it's ecological suicide, or ecocide, they might say. Our votes, our political choices for Soros and for Schwab and the WEF are killing the planet. So they believe they are perfectly justified in doing everything they can to thwart, to deliberately thwart the will of the people when that will is expressed in ways they don't agree with. And because our elites are the enlightened ones, the only ones who truly understand how the world ought to be governed, they believe in thwarting the will of the people. They ironically are protecting democracy, in that they are protecting the informed consent of a ruling elite. Now, what Data Republican is doing here is she's basically blowing the lid off of how this pragmatic democracy works, practically speaking, because, of course, you pay for it. This is the beauty of DOGE. These parasites, these leeches, can't run the world on their own time or treasure. They need your resources and finances to leech off of. So they've constructed this intricate network as a front to basically thwart your democratically expressed will, and at the same time enrich and empower themselves in the process. So what are these 7 key NGOs that have just been exposed, these non-governmental organizations that Data Republican and her masterful work has identified? Well, we've got the International Republican Institute, run by establishment Republicans. We've got the National Democratic Institute, aligned, of course, with establishment Democrats. We've got the Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening. I absolutely despise these precocious names. We've got the National Endowment for Democracy. We've got the International Foundation. Guys, I don't know if you have, there's we have that graph of all the different organizations. That might be helpful for people if they just want to kind of write these down. We've got the National Endowment for Democracy. We've got the International Foundation for Electoral Systems. We've got Internews. Now, we talked about Internews last night during last night's Q&A. This is huge. Now, you would have been privy to Internews last night if you joined our Courageous Conservatives Club, because we had our own private Q&A on our own private exclusive virtual platform. And I showed you guys, I exposed what Internews is doing. Internews is this as an international news funding NGO that just got caught spending upwards of $500 million a year to basically spread pro-establishment, pro-liberal propaganda all over the world, right? So I've seen this myself. I was talking about the NHK in Japan. My wife's from Japan, so I spent a lot of time in Japan. And I'll watch the Japanese news, and it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. There you go. What's that? Go back to that. Let's see. No, that's the International Republican Institute. There you go. Very good. Good. They woke up. I put them to sleep. All right, good. So that's going to be the 7 NGOs that have been exposed to basically be the uniparty in terms of how it functions. That's the DNA of it. But I've watched the NHK a lot, and I love the NHK. It's a beautiful. That's basically the Japanese version of the BBC. But, and my wife has talked about this as well, whenever they're ever talking about anything American politics, European politics, anything Western, it's like the script was written directly by Nancy Pelosi. The talking points could not possibly be more left-wing. The Japanese were shocked when Trump won in November. They were absolutely shocked. They couldn't, but my wife's family couldn't believe it in Tokyo, because they were being told every single day by their news outlets that Kamala Harris was the most popular presidential candidate in the history of humanity. So that's an example of how this Internews ends up. Now, again, I don't know if the NHK gets direct funding there, but I think that's an example of how Internews ends up basically spewing left-wing propaganda with your tax dollars to boot. Continuing here, we've got the Center for International Private Enterprise, and we've got the Solidarity Center. But what they all have in common, as Data Republican points out, is that they're all dedicated to advocating quote unquote democracy. And of course, they've redefined quote unquote democracy pragmatically, meaning advocating democracy by advocating themselves and their own rule over our lives. You know, they've spent all this, again, Mike Benz talks about it. They spent all this time building these alliances, building these NGO networks, and who the heck are we to come in and basically vote to dismantle that? How dare we do that? And they get in our way. They do everything they can. Unelected officials, by the tens of thousands, get in our way to make sure we cannot do that, to make sure that the will of the people is actively thwarted. Now, Data Republican gets into significant detail in her X thread, the funding, the spending details with each one. I already gave you a sense of Internews and how they skew the news into a pro-DC establishment propaganda all over the world. And we're talking like 4,000 news outlets internationally that they fund. But the key here is that all of these NGOs are not just being funded, or better, were funded by USAID. They're also being chaired by establishment Republicans and establishment Democrats. And they're receiving tens of billions of dollars of our tax monies, with almost half their budget being appropriated for, you guessed it, salaries. They are paying themselves inordinate figures with our tax dollars. Take, for example, just to show you we are an equal opportunity offender here. Take, for example, the International Republican Institute, the IRI. It's chaired by the likes of Mitt Romney, Lindsey Graham, Joni Ernst, Tom Cotton. Look at their budget. Do we have their budget there? It should be the next slide. There it is. They're getting $100 million freaking dollars to, quote, defend democracy. That's our tax dollars. Oh, by the way, 100 million plus. I think it's more like 130 million. But if you could see it, look at these salaries. They are paying out, if you can believe it, nearly $40 million in salaries. Let that hit you. 38 million in salaries, 17.5 million in what they term fringe benefits, and $12 million in travel. 12 million in travel. More than half their budget they spend on themselves. You want to know how Kamala burned through all that money? She learned it from DC. And you'll be interested in finding out that IRI, while being chaired by Republicans, actually doles out tens of millions of dollars to progressive-aligned NGOs like the International Organization for Migration and the Office of Global Women's Issues. Now, not to be outdone, the National Democrat Institute is doling out nearly $50 million to spending grants worldwide. And guess which organization that the Democrats give $1 million to last year? You can't make this up. The International Republican Institute. I kid you not. Data Republicans got the receipts. Democrats and Republicans are giving each other money. They are giving each other your money. Here's how Data Republican summarizes all of this absolute bombshell. After thinking it over last night, here's how I would summarize it. These 7 NGOs, 8 if you count the off-the-chart Solidarity Center, together function as an off-the-books shadow government. If you go down a little bit, guys, I don't know if you have it a little bit more, but she goes on to say, most of these NGOs were born during the Reagan years. And while not all USAID and State Department funding flows through them, they basically, these 7 NGOs, control the purse strings for much of America's global financial influence. DEI initiatives created a system of unaccountability and dependency, which ended up injecting more money into them and further entrenches their power. They see any challenge to their authority as a threat to democracy itself. But their greatest enemy is still the same one they've had since the Cold War, and that, of course, would be Russia. They've never lost the Cold War boomer mindset. In their minds, they're the superheroes keeping America from crumbling. And that entitles them to their travel perks, cushy post-election gigs, and all the other benefits that come with running an unacknowledged empire. And ironically, none of us voted for this. Now, the beauty here is that thanks to DOGE and thanks to Data Republican, more and more people on both the political left and right are suddenly realizing that in supporting both the establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans, they've actually, in point of fact, been supporting, inadvertently, they have been supporting the theft of our tax dollars that's gone to these completely useless endeavors that were only set up to pilfer money at our expense. That is what DOGE is finding, that the administrative state is nothing more than a front for what is basically money laundering, for moving taxpayer funds around in such a way that exploits things like defending democracy as a veneer for the accumulation of personal power and affluence. That's what we're finding is the heart, the very heart of our federal government. Our federal government is ultimately nothing more than a massive front for tens of thousands of elites to enrich themselves at taxpayer expense by setting up worthless institutions and organizations that ultimately do nothing more than amass power and wealth for a corrupt elite. But the jig is up. DOGE has exposed the uniparty and the administrative state that they use to empower that party. Their days are over. No amount of activist judges are going to even come close to stopping what's coming. A new populist era, an era of true redemptive democracy where the people are taking back their government, is rising, and there is nothing that our corrupt elite can do to stop us. We often talk about how we can maintain and build up the conservative way of life, and one crucial aspect of that is your routine. Staying strong physically and mentally isn't just about living longer, it's about living better. I partnered with Beam because they're a health and wellness company that's put in the time and rigorous research to craft science-backed solutions that truly optimize every system in your body from the moment you wake up until you lay your head down to sleep. More specifically, I've been using Beam Dream for a while now, and it's completely changed the way I sleep. I'm a horrible sleeper. I used to toss and turn while my mind raced through the night. But since taking Dream, gang, I fall asleep much faster and even sleep all throughout the night. It's a game changer. Beam Dream is made with the highest quality sleep-promoting ingredients to help you unwind and get the deep sleep you need and deserve. It's become a nightly ritual of mine. I look forward to it each and every day. Plus, I never wake up feeling groggy the next morning. I even wake up before my alarm sometimes, which is something I never used to do. I have the best deal I've ever had with Beam, so now's your time to give Dream a try. Shop early access to Beam's biggest sale ever, and get this, get up to 50% off site-wide for a limited time when you use promo code Turley. Yes, that's half off, gang. Don't miss out on this offer. Click the QR code on the screen or use the link below to propel your wellness journey to the next stage today. Gang, we are living through one of the most important financial shifts in modern history. I mean, we've all seen it these last 4 years. I mean, think about where we were. I mean, major corporations turned against our values. They punish businesses that stand for faith, family, and freedom. For years, it felt like there was nothing we could do, like we were stuck funding companies that despise us. But something huge is happening. All across the country, millions of hardworking Americans are waking up and taking back control, not just as consumers, but as business owners, as investors, and as creators in what's being called the parallel economy or the patriot economy. A new economy is rising, a new economic system, one that rejects woke corporate control and puts power back into the hands of the people who built this nation. And here's the best part. For the first time, this isn't just about how you spend your money. It's about now making money. And if you act now, you can position yourself to thrive in a way that was never possible before. Think about it. For decades, we played by their rules. So we built careers, we invested in retirement accounts, and we trusted the system to work for us. But what happened? The same corporations we supported turned on us. The same banks we trusted started shutting down accounts of people who didn't follow their agenda. The same institutions that claimed to be for the people started making it clear, if you don't comply, you don't get to play. I mean, again, think about it. Businesses have been deplatformed just for standing up for traditional values. Families have watched their investments plummet while the elites got richer. And if you spoke the truth in the wrong place, you risk being silenced, fired, or even debanked, financially cut off. That's not an economy built for the people. That's an economy built for an elite, for the few who think they control everything. But here's what they never expected. People like you, hardworking, faith-filled, freedom-loving Americans aren't playing by their rules anymore. Right now, we're watching something incredible happen. A truly new golden age and a massive transfer of wealth is beginning. And for the first time, it's happening on our terms. The parallel economy isn't just a boycott. It's an entirely new way to build wealth outside the control of corrupt corporations. New businesses are thriving without needing woke banks. Families are investing in companies that actually support our values. Entrepreneurs are launching businesses without fear of being canceled. And those who understand what's happening right now, before the rest of the world catches on, have the chance to build generational wealth in a way that was simply never possible before. History shows that whenever there's a massive financial shift, there are two kinds of people: those who act early and change their future, and those who hesitate, those who sit back and watch, wishing they had done something when they could have. Right now, we are at that exact moment, at that crossroads. That's not speculation. This is happening right now. We've seen it before. The people who understood Bitcoin early on, the ones who saw Tesla's potential before it took off, the ones who grabbed up real estate before the market exploded, they're the ones who prospered. But contrast that with the ones who hesitated. Well, they're the ones who frankly got left behind. They missed out. So, gang, that is why we're hosting the America's Golden Age Summit. In just 90 minutes, we're going to give you the blueprint to take control of your financial future. We're going to show you exactly how to get in on this economic revolution before it's too late, because there's a limited window to act, and those who take action now will be the ones who win. Joining me today is our good friend, Chris Boyer. Chris is marketing director for Turley Talks and owner of Clearly Business Advisors. Chris, welcome. Great to see you, my friend.
You too, Dr. Steve. Thank you so much.
Well, it's an honor to have you. What's going on? Yeah, I mean, you're on the front lines of all this. What does this moment that we're in really mean for everyone listening?
Yeah, well, you teed it up perfectly. For decades, big corporations and banks, they controlled everything. They told us where we could shop, where we could bank, and even who could do business. And we went along with it because we didn't think we had a choice. Right. For many years, I helped plant churches. I started businesses. And then I also worked in corporate America for some really large companies. And it was during that time that I began to witness the terrible woke mind virus start to take over. I saw small business owners who faced enormous pressure to toe the liberal line or face the consequences. Some were sued and put out of business just for their personal beliefs and for speaking their opinions. I saw the huge obstacles that you faced, Steve. Yeah. I personally worked for a company that wanted to force me to participate in celebrations that went against my personal religious beliefs or risk being fired. My career and my livelihood were threatened, and it was comply or not feed my kids. I couldn't believe it. But it wasn't just that. It was also the financial system rigged, like you said, so that Americans would be dependent on it. And a bought-off media was complicit in trying to keep us scared. So what we're dealing with really is it's like a two-headed dragon. That was one part of it, the woke mind virus, the rigged banking system, and the corrupt media. But the other head of this two-headed dragon is something I call the success snatcher. And the audience is probably familiar with what I'm talking about. It's that voice in our head that makes us hesitate. It's the force that keeps us from seizing opportunities until it's too late. It silently steals our future wealth while we hesitate on the sidelines. And when we hesitate, it can literally snatch success right out of our grasp.
The success snatcher. I love it's so ominous. That is so cool. I've heard of the concept, but I've never heard the term. I love it. So the success snatcher. How did the success snatcher, as you call it, help cause all of this?
Well, we have that little voice in our head that, sometimes we get right up to the line where we're going to make a decision to do something. And it's like, I don't know, it's too risky.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
people thought, Bitcoin's a scam. Tesla will never take off. Real estate it's just too risky. And so what happened, the people who listened to that or were misled,
Mhm.
missed the opportunity of a lifetime. I mean, when I see Bitcoin going for more than $97,000 a share today, I kick myself for not getting in earlier when it was 20.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, that's for sure. Big
Yeah.
time. And we know a couple of people who did get in around that time, and let's
Mhm.
just say they're doing quite well right now. I think
Yeah.
they're the proof positive of what we're saying. So, what's behind this? How was all of this allowed to happen? How did we end up in this situation that we've been in?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for too long, we trusted the system. We
Yeah.
thought these companies cared about their customers. Clever marketing campaigns. We care about you. We put you first. We thought the banks worked for us,
Right.
but the moment we pushed back against their agenda, they showed us their true colors.
Right.
And again, as you've called out so many times, this dragon, the success snatcher, was also fed by the lamestream media and fake news who shoved wokeism in our faces and tried to scare hardworking, courageous conservatives from standing up. And then lastly, it's just, I think it's plain old human nature for many of us where, some of us, me included, I'm risk averse. So I wait. And most of the time we wait too long.
Right, right. No, and it makes me even more upset knowing that the legacy media was getting our tax dollars to push that kind
Yeah.
of nonsensical propaganda.
Yeah.
But we're all about, encouraging our audience to seize the moment, take action.
Yes.
Do not let anything get in your way. What kind of hope can help motivate everyone to stand up and defeat the success snatcher in their own lives?
Well, Steve, the hope is real and it's bigger than ever because for the first time in a long time, we're not just fighting back; we're actually winning.
We're winning.
Um, I mean, every day one more news report now that we're making progress. President Trump is doing what he said he would do, and one of the things he promised he wanted to do was usher in a new golden age. So, President Trump and the MAGA movement, Turley talkers, this movement is spreading like wildfire. The old system is collapsing under its own weight, and the parallel economy is rising in its place. Businesses that support our values are thriving. People
Yeah.
are breaking free from corporate control. They're building wealth, but on their own terms. According to Forbes magazine, 82% of consumers say they shop with their values, and three-quarters of them, they'll go elsewhere if they find their values conflict with the company.
Wow.
That's a major shift than 20,
Wow.
25 years ago, even 15 years ago.
Right.
For
Right.
example, there's one brave American. Her name is Jennifer Say. She's a
Mhm.
national gymnastics champion, and she was so frustrated by seeing girls harmed by woke policies and seeing biological males invade girls' sports that she decided she had to do something. So she teamed up with what she calls a ragtag group of canceled, ousted, and self-described misfits, and they created an athletic brand that would stand for truth and for America's highest ideals: equality of opportunity and freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And today, with partners like Riley Gaines, XXXY Athletics, only two there, XXXY Athletics is booming, and they are helping girls compete with
Wow.
safety and dignity. And Jennifer
Wow.
saw an opportunity and she seized it. And there are countless more people like her, you and me included.
Right.
So the hope is this: we don't have to be slaves to a system that hates us. We can own our own future. But this, get in early window, like many things, it won't stay open forever.
Right.
I think it's a virtual gold rush.
Right.
People who act now will be the ones who create generational wealth and financial freedom for their families. And really, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love those examples. All right. All right, I'm convinced. I'm there. I'm sure everyone else is convinced. So what can we do? How can we make something like that happen for ourselves in our own lives?
Well, it's really simple. February 27th is the America's Golden Age Summit, 2 p.m. Eastern or 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. It's on a Thursday. And you and your expert guest, you've got an amazing team lined up, and you're going to lay out the full blueprint step by step. In just 90 minutes, you're going to show people exactly how to spend their money with businesses that align with their values, places like Public Square and other places who are allowing us to do that. How to start or grow a business in the parallel economy, how to invest in the companies that are winning in this new era, and then how to build financial independence and generational wealth without relying on woke corporations. And the best part is the Turley Talks team, they're making it so easy to get in. Right now, early bird registration is just $7. I think I spent almost that much on a cup of coffee yesterday. But it's $7. That deal's going to close soon. So I would highly recommend folks get in now. And the way you do that is you just click on the link below, you grab your spot, and you join us for America's Golden Age Summit before the success snatcher steals another opportunity.
No, not the success snatcher. No, that's awesome. This is so awesome. We truly are in a historical moment. This is a once in a lifetime moment. I mean, the old system is crumbling and the parallel patriot economy is rising. But the real question is, are you going to take action? Will you take action, or are you going to let that specter of the success snatcher steal this opportunity from you? Chris and I have laid it all out. The chance to build wealth, secure your financial future, and break free from woke corporations. It's all within your grasp. But opportunities like this do not last forever. So don't wait. Right now, you can claim your spot at the America's Golden Age Summit for just $7, but that price will disappear soon. So this is your first test to see if you're going to let the success snatcher stop you. So don't wait. Click that link below, sign up now, and get the blueprint to thrive in America's new patriot economy. I can't wait to see you there, gang. As Elon would say, it's going to be amazing. Chris, man, thanks so much for being with us. I'll see you on the 27th. It's going to be awesome.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
When I came across this story about Joe Rogan saying that many in the entertainment industry have been thanking him for endorsing Trump, it struck me as a perfect example of how certain cultural shifts are being covered predominantly by right-leaning sources and being missed by the left. Now, I've seen this covered extensively on Ground News. Ground News is a website and app that compiles stories from over 50,000 outlets from around the world and lets you compare coverage across the political spectrum so you can get the facts for yourself. Check them out at ground.news/Steve. So here's the story on Ground News. I found it through their blind spot feed, which shows stories disproportionately covered by one side of the political spectrum. So I always check the blind spot feed because it helps me stay fully informed. Now, this story's been covered by roughly 20 sources, with 64% coming from the right. And look at this, just 9% coming from left-leaning sources. So it's clear from the lack of reporting on one side of the political spectrum that this is a blind spot story for the left. With Ground News, we can compare headlines ourselves to get a clear picture of how each side is presenting the issue. So the left-leaning headline states, Joe Rogan says hippies and artists have been thanking him for last-minute Trump endorsement because they can't do it. While a right-leaning headline reads, Joe Rogan says many in the entertainment industry had privately thanked me for endorsing Trump. So you can see the difference. The left-leaning headline frames Rogan's language as provocative, while the right-leaning headline is more straightforward, alluding to cultural shifts toward free speech and anti-censorship themes that are resonating in certain creative circles. Now, if you want to stay informed on important issues and get a full view of the news landscape, check out ground.news/Steve. You can click the link in the description below or scan the QR code for 50% off the unlimited access Vantage plan. This is the best deal of the year, and if you're already a subscriber, you can even gift Ground News for 50% off to family or friends. When you support Ground News, you're also supporting the work we do right here at Turley Talks. Click on that link below.